So we've talked about setting up your characters, we've talked about setting up your world building, and your magical mystery elements. Now we're going to talk about, in our recap, how to set up a plot. And what's the difference between a plot and a story. Without further ado, let's jump in. So I talked about this in my video, how to introduce a plot, Les Misérables. In this video, I talked about the movie Les Misérables and how it sets up its plot perfectly in the opening minutes of the movie. And I also talked about the importance of the difference between a plot and a movie. So let's start out by just recapping what a plot is. A plot is the engine of your train. It's what causes everything to move. Each of the cars in your train is, different things, world building, characters, all that stuff. And your plot is what drives them all together. It's what causes them to get to where they're going. What causes the character development and the character arcs and all. Wow, your story would be the full train. It's just the train itself. The plot is what's going on in the story. The story is what actually the story is, if you get what I'm saying. The story is, if I watch a movie, right? The story, for example, right, The Lord of the Rings. The story of The Lord of the Rings is the adventure that Frodo and Sam goes on to destroy the ring. The plot of The Lord of the Rings is the destroying of the ring. It's very easy for someone to, mix those up and say that the plot is the story. The plot is not the story. You can actually end the plot and still have the story going for a little bit longer. So that's what the difference between a plot and a movie is. And the importance of a plot, because the plot is what drives everything, what causes everything to go to where it's going. Now let's talk about this movie. So quick recap, what I talked about is the opening of this movie. You see a man named Jean Valjean who was put in prison for 19 years. You pick up once he's being released. He now can go out into the world again. And he's there's a part of him that's hyped, yeah, I'm finally free. But then the guard who's releasing him says, no, you're not. And he gives him this paper and says, this paper you shall show to everyone that you run across, to show that you are a dangerous man. And then he explains, and then Jean Valjean argues back, but why am I being punished for this? I just stole a loaf of bread. And he's like, well, you were in prison for this many years. You're a dangerous person because you stole that loaf of bread and then you tried to run, and now you were in prison for this. So you can see that Jean Valjean thinks that this is unfair, that he won't be able to ever go back into a normal life. He's never going to be able to get a proper job and all kind of stuff because now he's going to always be known as a dangerous person, a person who would always be a criminal, who would always steal from you, and you can't trust him at all. This is Jean Valjean's mindset going out of the prison. And then you hear him say, as he's leaving the prison, that he will never forgive them, they are guilty, and he wishes harm on them as he leaves. You see him going to town, he's been rejected by a lot of people, and then finally he comes upon a bishop. And the bishop invites him in. It's a nice dinner, but he notices that the bishop has all this beautiful silverware and all this stuff. And he's like, I'm not going to be able to get a job ever. All I'm ever going to be known as a thief, so why not just go back to that habit? And so he stole some of the silverware that night and ran. But he got caught. When he got caught, he got brought back to the bishop. And the bishop tells these guards that, oh, I gave him the silver. That silverware belongs to him. I gave it to him. And then he tells Jean Valjean, your soul now belongs to God. I dismiss you. You can go in peace now. Go live a life as an honest man. And you see him walk out, and he walks in the hills, and he rips up that paper that shows that he was a criminal. And he just disappears. Jean Valjean is dead now. And you see for the whole movie is the redemption of this man. So what can we learn for this on how to set up a plot? Using your character to say, this. Now, some plots are not like this. With the Lord of the Rings, the plot is set up a lot different. You get the point. Using your character, using your world, using your magical elements, using something like that to set up what the plot's going to be about is the best way to get your plot going. Oh, one last thing I'm going to quickly mention is that I did also explain the difference between musicals and non-musicals. I will not be explaining that whole part in this video because the fact of the matter is, just last week I put out a video talking about the difference between that. Is a 20-minute video talking about that. And so you guys can watch that, and then eventually when we get to it, I will recap that 20-minute video into a 5-minute video if you guys really just want to see the 5-minute recap of that. Thank you guys for watching. If you guys haven't yet, please subscribe. This has been the Movie Night Reviewer, Peter Way, signing off.